Welcome to the latest Healthcare Scene Google Plus Hangout on healthcare marketing. We're excited to have you here. I think this is our fifth Hangout. And before we begin this Hangout with two experts in healthcare marketing, I also want to remind people that next week we have another Google Plus Hangout on June 6th at 2:30 Eastern. This Google Plus Hangout is with Jonathan Bush from Athena Health, and we're going to be talking about open EHR systems. And if you know Jonathan Bush, that should be a lively conversation. So also, if you're following along in the live broadcast, you can feel free to send us any questions you have on Twitter. Feel free to just do @EHR and HIT, and we'll hopefully incorporate any questions that come. If not, we certainly have plenty to talk about with our two experts today. First, I'd like to introduce Don Seamons. He's the principal at Lumeno Marketing. Hey, Don, how are you?
Good. How are you, John?
Good.
Good to be here.
And we also have Shahid Shah, the founder of Netspective and also InfluentialNetworks.com. Welcome, Shahid.
Howdy.
Good to have you here. Well, we're excited to discuss healthcare marketing. It's a really interesting, changing environment in healthcare today. But I thought, to start this discussion, maybe we'd lead off with some, discussion of what old marketing techniques really just aren't working any longer. So you want to start us off, Don?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that anytime you have one marketing technique that you try to use exclusive of anything else, that's not going to work. I don't think that there's anything that is a traditional marketing technique that isn't going to necessarily work as part of a broader campaign. I just can't paint anything with a broad brush like that. But I do think that some type of tactics, some types of strategies work better for different markets than others, and different audiences than others, and different times than others. But if there is one thing that doesn't work, it's just saying, hey, let's just, our whole marketing strategy is to advertise in a print publication. Or even if you want to, say our whole marketing strategy is to be on Twitter. That's not going to work. It's got to be a broad strategy. It's got to be integrated. There have to be tactics that work together. And I think that more and more you need to be open. You need to be an organization that doesn't just speak to your audience. You got to listen to your audience as well.
That's great. So kind of multiple touch points and don't just rely on one strategy. That's great. Anything else to add, Shahid?
Yeah, I would say that I completely agree. I wouldn't be that worried about what not to do from a marketing perspective. I would be worried about what not to say. So we're in this area of, especially if you look at health IT in general, because of what the HITECH Act, the Affordable Care Act, and other government regulations have done, we're in a incentives-driven or regulatory-driven model, more so than we were just a few years ago. And so if you're focused on productivity enhancement, if you're focused on basic cost cutting, etc., and that's your whole focal point, you may not get as much attention as you would get if you were focused on things like, getting incentive payments, how do you move beyond regulatory burdens, etc. So it's not so much, Don said exactly the right thing, is you can't just do one thing and do it, but really focus on not putting the message that you think you want to put forward, but what are the questions and what are the things that your customers are dealing with on a daily basis. So for example, you might find that many people are out there looking for ICD-10 information, and you're coming in with information about how to make your staff more productive. It's just a mismatch. So it doesn't matter whether you tweet it or you blog it or you advertise it in print, the wrong message at the wrong time just won't work. Now at the same time, what you want to do is to pinpoint and say that, it's not, the world isn't as simple as it was before, when you could say that here's my customer segment and here's my market segment, and I'm going to do one message here and one message over there. We know that content automation and content marketing is big. So what you want to do is to focus on, and this seems like, you'd say to me, duh, of course we're going to focus on what the customer wants to hear. But more often than not in marketing, we're more interested in what we want to say rather than what customers are actually willing to hear. And that's really what I would focus on. So it's not about what not to do, but what not to say at what time based on what customers are looking for.
Yeah. That's great. Related to what you said, as I was thinking about this question, one shift that I think is happening is we're really into much more sophisticated purchasing. Back in the days when they were like, I need an EHR, the directory lead generation worked well because they didn't know which options were out there. But now, as they've already had an EMR, they've already had an EHR, whatever, they've already had a certain system. As they go to purchase, they're much more sophisticated. And so the information that you need to provide in your marketing has to be much more sophisticated as well. Otherwise, the general, here's a directory, why don't you choose one of these, just doesn't work quite as well.
Yeah.
So, kind of moving on from that, what do you think the biggest challenges are that healthcare marketers face today? Don, you want to do it?
Oh, there's a lot of challenges that healthcare marketers face today, and I think time is a big part of it. I think that internally, with all the, you mentioned content marketing, Shahid, and that's absolutely true. Content marketing is something that every company needs to be doing, and that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of expertise. And your subject matter experts don't have the time necessarily to contribute a lot of content to your blog or to your Twitter feed or to a white paper, because they've got other jobs that are really, part of why they're employed. They're to make money rather than to write white papers, which don't have an immediate return on investment, let's say, although they're very effective. So I think time is the biggest challenge that I can see for healthcare marketers right now. And as a corollary to that, finding the right kind of people who have the expertise that they need to get content out to those that need it.
And what do you see as the solution to the time problem? I mean, what are you seeing people doing that help to solve that issue?
Well, I think the important thing is to make content marketing or marketing in general a priority, and for healthcare marketers, that is demonstrating value. So the big thing that a healthcare marketer can do right now is to show that there is value to a white paper that focuses on their niche market, or there is value to a webinar. And the way to do that is to show you're getting this many leads off of it, you're getting this many sales calls off of it. That's really the key. And there's a lot of marketers out there that are doing this and that are doing great, and they have demonstrated the value, and there's still time elements that they need to be concerned about. So finding the right partner is another element to this. Finding a partner that understands the terrain in healthcare, that understands how the audience is moved, how they're persuaded, and then relying on that partner for help and advice.
Yeah, that's great. I always say, you usually get what you want, and so if your focus isn't on it, then you're not going to get it, right?
Right, that's a very good point.
Yeah, I think that's great. But then also the idea of a partner, I think, is good too. But they have to understand healthcare, because there's a lot of people trying to market that just don't understand healthcare, and so then they lead to these unsatisfactory results. Shahid, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest challenges and what keeps marketers up at night would probably be the mismatch in stated priority by senior management and actual priority given to their divisions. Whether it's, sometimes you can talk about budget, etc., but it's really about attention and time. So if your CEO walks in and says that we need marketing to step up and get us 10% increase in revenue or a 25% increase in margins, etc., and then comes to marketing and says, okay, what are you guys going to do about it? Marketing will come up with a plan and say, okay, we're going to have these particular channels, we're going to talk about these particular subject areas, etc., and here's what I need to make that happen. Sometimes it's money, but more often than not, it's actual attention from people within the company. What we have seen happen in the internet age is it's not just the marketing team that can and should and is able to talk to the rest of the internet. It has to be the entire company. So for example, if the marketing team cannot reach out to the support team and say, hey, support team, at the end of every day, I'll interview you guys for 15, 20, 30 minutes, and figure out precisely what customers are asking for, how they're responding, what kind of questions they're asking about. And if the support head of support hasn't been told by the CEO that you need to make yourself available, or the head of product development, or the head of sales, etc., everybody that's outside really talking to customers all the time is the one that's supposed to be feeding information into marketing, and it's not happening. So what the biggest challenge for marketing is to say, how do I get senior management, executive leadership to agree that the resources that I need must be made available? Otherwise, that 25% increase in margins or the 10% increase in revenue you're looking for just aren't going to be there. Partners like us, I mean, like Don and I routinely write content all the time. I mean, whether it's white papers or copy, etc., we'll do that regularly. But ultimately, you need people inside the company to tell you why you're different than everyone else. Guys like us from the outside who are really understanding healthcare, and just like you do, John, that we can tell companies what should be in the content for the white paper or the content for the blog post from the outside, what is generally happening in the industry. But realistically, imagine that you could get a 15-minute every other day interview with head of customer support, or leads that are doing direct communication with the customers, or in product development, or in sales, etc. Imagine how much more beautiful that content would be and how much more useful that content would be. So I would say the biggest challenge is just baloney coming in from senior management, and that baloney being that marketing is important, but then not feeding that beast. It needs a lot of attention, and if marketing doesn't get that attention, there's not a whole lot that it can do other than go outside and say, hey, let's go get outsiders to come in and tell us what our company should be saying about our products and services.
I think Shahid knows as well as I do that people don't care. People in this market anyway, and probably in most other markets as well, don't care what the marketing guy says. They really don't. They don't say, hey, here's the VP of marketing for so-and-so company. I want to sit down and listen to him for 45 minutes at a presentation, or I want to read what he has to write. It's really the subject matter experts. It's the CEO. It may even be the head of sales, but it's the product people. It's the chief medical officer behind the company. CFOs want to hear from finance people. IT leaders want to hear from IT people. So that's, I think, critical. And just to Shahid's point, that we can't be the ones making all the noise. We need to facilitate all of that, and we need to make it happen and get the right people in front of the right audiences. But getting the right people in front of those audiences is the critical part.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of related to this though is a challenge. I think that getting those right people on board takes a long-term strategy, and far too often it seems that, and maybe you guys have seen something different, but it seems that they say, okay, here's your budget, go get us 100 users, rather than doing a long-term strategy of saying, how do we position ourselves in our market? How do we make it so that a year from now we have 1,000 customers, as opposed to trying to drive 100 customers in this quarter, and that which leads to a failed marketing strategy, or leads to those gut reactions, those gut ad buys or whatever that try to drive in the customers through some sort of brute force marketing, as opposed to long-term strategic positioning. Have you seen stuff similar to this, or?
I would totally agree. I think that if you think about the strategy, although in healthcare the numbers are a little bit different, right? So in other industries you can say I'm looking for 10,000 or 500,000 or whatever the numbers are in consumer. It's okay. I'm less concerned about the actual number. I mean, it's right to say if you can shoot for the next year of 1,000 instead of shooting for the next month of 100 or a quarter of 100, that's great. But really, we're a little bit more sticklers to metrics than we absolutely need to be early on. Once you have a sophisticated setup, you have a lot of content coming in, you know how to pursue content and prepare it and get it out, metrics mean a whole lot. But in that first 30, 45, 60, 90 days, all you have to work on is just give me attention. I mean, just beg for attention. If you're in the marketing team, all you have to do is try to beg for attention within your company and get some regular people, guys who understand how important what Don just said is it's not just us. It's not what we say. It's what the insider's saying. It's what the CFO, the CIO, et cetera, are talking about. And you will find, and if you're wondering, is everybody else doing this and only our company we have this problem? Let us tell you, as subject matter experts on this, nobody does this right. There are very, very few companies that do it well. But if you're going to beg for something of your boss or of your senior management, don't ask for more money. More money, you can get more consultants, et cetera, which are a good thing for guys like us, but they won't actually help you with that deep knowledge that you need to prepare a proper long-term strategy. And that, John, I agree with 100%, is it's got to be a long-term strategy that says, okay, who am I going to get in the first month, the second month? What does my editorial calendar look like for what I'm going to talk about? That is very, very, very customer-centric, not very me-centric. I mean, we all love talking about ourselves and about our companies, but of course we know nobody gives a damn what our companies are doing, or nor do they care what we're working on. What they care about is, what have you done for me lately? And that's what's got to really come out from inside the company. And so as a marketer, when you're looking and saying, what do I go ask for? Try not to get money if you can. Obviously, I'm not going to say don't do that, but beg for attention from senior people within your company that can go around and get you real content on a regular basis. Now, keep in mind that the work that you have to do as a marketer is you have to be the interviewer. You're the talk show host. You're the guy who has to be silent on the side and encourage people to talk, get stuff out of them, take a notepad, hire an intern, do whatever you need to do, but get them in front of those subject matter experts. And if you need the money, that's what you want to hire, is get a guy who will help you do that interview where you'll be the talk show host. You'll elicit content out of these guys, comments coming out from the subject matter experts in the various areas. If you've established that within your company, those experts will know a bunch of other experts in the field. Like IT will know IT experts, and finance will know finance experts, et cetera. So when you do that, you're actually setting yourself up for a very nice network effect within your company. So you have 10, 20, 50 people in your company. Each one of those knows 3, 5, 10 other experts. And now the flood of content starts coming in. Once you have good ideas, good content focused on your company, on your product, around your product, I should say, then hiring experts like us is actually quite useful, because we come in and you're like, okay, I've got these 10 ideas that we want to do. Now, that's all easy. What the harder part is to then take that content and say, how do I massage it? How do I shift it? How do I prepare it so that it matters to my product? I mean, it's great to say, hey, well, everybody wants to hear about ICD-10, but if you make a printer, nobody cares about ICD-10 on printers, right? So you got to take your tie the two together and say, what do people care about, and how do I twist that and massage it to fit the product that I'm selling? And that's really where experts like us can help, actually come and help you, is that here's what they're talking about, here's my product, here are our ideas, now work with us to implement them.
Sure. I mean, you pointed out one thing, right, is create content that really fits the customer need. And I think one of the challenges that marketers face is, how do you cut through the noise? Because the customers are getting bombarded by emails, by tweets, by content, by all sorts of, every direction. And quite frankly, the executives that I talk to are overwhelmed just dealing with the day-to-day operations, let alone looking for the next solution that could actually make their life easier. So, I mean, certainly one way to cut through that noise is by having a message that resonates with the customer, which I think a lot of people miss on. Are there other ways to cut through the noise and get through that filter of executives that are overwhelmed, and how do you get through that, Don? Any suggestions?
Well, I think that it's going back to the multi-tiered strategy that we talked about earlier. If you want to be effective in marketing, there's got to be many touch points, and to do that, you gotta, I guess, to be dead simple, is just to get out there. Try to get yourself in front of them in an event. You've got your trade show booth, but what about speaking engagements at the event? What about extracurricular activities that are associated with that event? You got your advertising in a certain publication, but what about What about the PR aspect of it? Are you in the editorial? Just think of all the different ways that person that you're going after, the person who has a need, who values what you have. Think of all the ways that person gets the information that they need. Obviously, search engine is a strategy that needs to be elaborated on and built upon. There are any number of other ways to get out there and get your name out there, but it's one thing to have the content, but it needs to be places where it's findable, and I think the key is just to be out there enough that your prospects are going to bump into you and say, okay, this person's an expert in X, Y, and Z. And that's interesting to me. I'm not really concerned about that right now, but at the point where they are, when they get to that point 2 or 3 years down the road, or maybe 2 or 3 months down the road, they'll think, hey, this person with so-and-so company is an expert in this. I need to look them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like there's so many marketing options this day. I mean, you have Twitter, you have Google+, you have search engine optimization, you have blogs, you have LinkedIn, you have Facebook, and of course I've just listed the online options. I haven't even hit any of the offline webinars. I guess that's online too, potentially, or in-person events, conferences, other meetings in person that happen all the time. How do you balance all of that, and how do you focus that, Shahid?
I would say that some of the things that we're probably overlooking include audio and video. I think the things that are pushing through a lot these days are, if you just think about this particular conversation, unlike a couple of years ago, it would have taken us a long time to prepare this, get people together, and run a audio-video conversation like this. A 5-minute video these days doesn't cost you more than 15 or 20 minutes now. It used to cost much more than that to be able to do it. So audio and video as a block probably is one area. Webinars, as you mentioned, as a block is another area. And in those two areas, what you're trying to do is to cut through the clutter of even words that come in. For example, in a 5-minute video, you can't take more than 5 minutes to actually get your message out. So you'll cut it down, making sure that you have a proper message. But probably another big area that I think we're missing quite often, that is writing other people's coattails. And that is, if you think about, for example, like if you're out there selling to small physicians, you have places like American Express and Bank of America who are going after those same customers. What are you doing to tie your customers with Bank of America or with American Express on their blogs, on their Twitter channels, on their different social channels, etc., trying to think outside the box and saying, my customer, if it's a hospital, what else is a hospital? A hospital is a business. If a business is in place, what other business are they doing? They're buying supplies, they're selling services, etc. So when you look at your customers, you say, what else are they besides a healthcare company? And where are they getting other information from for their supply chain information or their financial information, etc.? And could you provide guest postings, guest articles, a guest lecturer, etc., in those events to be able to reach them where they are? One thing that is really hard to do is to create a channel and hope that the customers are going to come to your channel. It's a lot easier to take your content and put it on the channels that they already are pursuing. And so if you think about audio video as a block, we all are pretty good at content marketing in general, but audio video is starting to make a big difference. And this idea of writing other people's coattails, if someone else is already marketing potentially to a customer, and I gave the example of a printer. I mean, think about it, big companies are selling printers all the time, fax machines, etc. Why can't you partner up with, why can't you take software that's creating digital stuff and connect with a printer company? There's no reason why. I mean, they're both orthogonal in the sense of they have different ideas. They're selling different products, but they're channeling it through to the same customers. And so if a customer happens to be looking for product A, but finds product B, that's actually quite useful. And so we talk to a lot of our customers about, let's think outside the box. And this is why it's really useful. Talk to somebody in sales or marketing, or in in finance or in tech support, etc., and say, these customers, what else are they reading? What else are they already participating in? What are the conferences, like Don mentioned, that they're going to that may seem orthogonal to what we are doing, but it's actually going to reach them? I mean, I like to, in a simple example, I always like to say there's not a whole lot of difference between a pizza shop owner and a small practice physician doctor from a small business perspective. They each have 5, 7, 10 staff. They each have fax machines. They all do email, SMS, etc. The pizza shop guy has his problems. Our physician folks have different problems, more serious ones in many cases. But ultimately, they're just small businesses. If you're a hospital, you're a medium-sized business. If you're a 200-bed hospital, if you're a pharma company, you are a business-to-business sale. So thinking about what others are doing and can you partner up? Everybody has the same problems, and many of them would be very open to partnering in ways that might have seemed implausible even a couple of years ago, but they're willing to today because it doesn't cost us anything to add a third person, for example, to this particular conversation, and yet it could be somebody outside of our industry that's making that happen. So video, audio, and ride other people's coattails whenever possible.
That's great. Well, we only have a couple minutes left, but let's kind of take a look into the future, pull out our crystal ball, and what are healthcare marketers going to need to do to be successful in the future? And I'll throw out my first suggestion is really the idea of driving sales from the bottom up. I think hospital CIOs are so overwhelmed that they're often looking to their lower level staff for suggestions on what to do. And in fact, I think this is particularly true in the hospital environment where they have so many people and hospitals are buying the clinics. And so I think they realize that they're going to get their best way to get new ideas is from some of the lower level staff trickling those ideas up to them and them seeing it that way. That's kind of, I think, one way that many are filtering it, where they say, I'm just so busy, one of my staff will bring it to me if it's interesting enough, right? So I think that's one way to consider it, is target them. And then, once the first time they say we should use this product, the hospital CIO probably doesn't blink. But the second and the third time they hear it, they're like, wait a minute, let's investigate. So I think that's one suggestion I think is going to happen in the future, especially as these hospital organizations get larger and larger. Don, you have any suggestions?
I think that's a great suggestion. I think that the point that you made about the C-level people being inundated is well taken. I think it's also really critical, kind of falling back onto what Shahid was talking about with finding people where they are, is just doing the research, really digging into your audience and figuring out. And this is, it's not really futuristic, is it? You asked a question about the future. This is just blocking and tackling type of stuff. You really, really need to know where your audience is, what they're concerned about, and you need to keep up on that. We have, as your content marketing engine, your content generation engine continues to evolve and get better, you're going to be churning out stuff. You want to make sure that stuff that you're churning out is hitting the right notes. If it's not hitting the right notes, then it's all for naught.
And I would say that from a future perspective, what we need to do is to have marketers get together with each other. And so it's funny where marketers often deal with very, very complex topics, and we're always using social media and everything else to move beyond and get our message across. But we don't use that same social media to actually talk to ourselves. Like, for example, Don, myself, John, etc., on getting together on a regular basis to say, what is it that we can do to help Don's companies get their word out? And Don is helping me out. And this could be even in a competitive situation. I mean, if you're two EHR companies, you're both selling the same thing to similar kinds of areas, doesn't mean that you can't help each other out. And so what I would say is, from a futuristic perspective, a platform or an approach or a model that allows us all to, from the marketing community, getting the marketers community together and getting that community to increase its human capital understanding, get a community of expertise going, so that what we work on is a real science in some areas, not just kind of like a black art that only some people know how to do. A lot of it is going to remain art, but we need to figure out how do we get together and turn this from a black art into a reasonable craft that we can follow some procedures and policies and stuff for, and then have a community where we can help each other out and everybody go forward, instead of us trying to just imagine that we're always competitors of each other.
Excellent. Well, it's interesting you say that. I've been kicking around the idea of holding a healthcare marketing conference. It sounds perfect for what you described, healthcare marketers coming together, interacting with each other, hearing from the top speakers, seeing some of the latest trends. So if people like it, if you watch this video and you like the idea, let us know in the comments of the video on Twitter, EHR and HIT, or let us know if wherever you're seeing this video, if this interests you. We're looking at putting it together possibly this fall, if there's interest enough. So thank you so much to Don Seamons, principal at Lumeno Marketing. I always thought of his name, but I think I got it this time. Lumeno Marketing. Thanks for coming. And Shahid Shah, founder of Netspective and InfluentialNetworks.com. Thanks for participating. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Right.
Thanks, John. And definitely get that conference together, and we'll pull everybody in.
Yeah, I'd love to be part of it.
Thanks, and be sure to turn in next week at June 6th, Thursday at 2:30 Eastern. We'll have that Google Plus Hangout with Jonathan Bush talking open EHR systems. Thanks.